Okay, now we have... I think now it's okay. We have lots of moves now. So far. It's move 13. So let's first say about the time control. They don't have any increment before the move 60. They have 2 hours for 40 moves each, and after 40th move they get I think half an hour for 20 more moves, and then they get 15 moves after move 60, and they get the increment of 30 seconds for each move. And I'm live. Yeah, that's nice. Let's check quickly the opening stage. So it was Rui Lopez, but it was some variation which I never saw before. This was all standard. Bishop b3, h3, knight a5 now. Aha. Usually it's played something like d6, and I think d3 is, or c3 is okay. After which we have something like this, and this is called, I think, Trigorin variation. I think. I hope. And oh, now I figured out. I realized I didn't put the Lichess tag, but never mind. It doesn't matter. People will find me on on YouTube. But in the game they played h3, knight a5, and now black takes a bishop pair, but white takes a pawn. Bishop e7, and now d3. White keeps the pawn. d5, something in the spirit of martial attack. Queen takes, queen f3, and now bishop d6. King f1. So probably the point of king f1 is to face this with some exchange and go back to g4. Oh, but then bishop g2 is dangerous. So maybe just bishop f4, and if knight h5, bishop h2 back. But still, this looks very dangerous. If f6, what does white do? Knight c3 maybe, or... I don't get this position so much. What the transmission says, it's king f1, rook fc8. Wow, this move is something else. Rook fc8. There has to be a problem with the Lichess transmission. Because I don't see how is this move useful. Rook fb8 probably, because I see that 4 games were played like this. Rook fb8, and now queen d5 was played in all 4 of those games. But it says rook fb8. Wait, let's refresh. Aha, here we have a new broadcast. Rook fb8 was played. And as I can see, it was not played on top level. It was played amongst international master, FIDE master level of players. Hello, Edward. Hello. Yeah, this looks very exciting because black is a pawn down and he has to prove that his compensation is worth something. I don't see how you can prove this immediately, but probably it's some long-term stuff, because I think it was prepared by both sides. And to be honest, I was expecting a d4 by 1 d4 from Nepomniachtchi. Because I thought he would first test the waters with this move. Okay, let's try to figure out why rook fb8 was played. So the threat might be to capture the knight, because in this position, if black took on e5, now white could probably take on b7, right? Take on b7, and in case of this, to go g3 maybe. Or maybe it's just enough to go queen f3 back. And in case of check, king e2, one more check, bishop e3, I think it's gonna be enough for white to defend. Now the queen has to go back and just develop, go to d2 maybe, and now this pawn doesn't seem so useless. Yeah, maybe it's gonna be e4. I think Magnus will probably mix it a bit, but I think that Nepo is going to hit him on e4. Because maybe he thinks that he will try to go for Sveshnikov with black. Or maybe test with white with Rossolimo, something like that. But I think Nepo will mix it up with d4, but I don't know. Queen's Gambit will be quite boring to watch. Especially those lines with queen a5 and c5. Something like this. I don't recall exactly how it's supposed to be played, but something along these lines. c5 takes queen a5. I cannot recall how Magnus and Nakamura had some games in this variation, but I don't really know. Let's just go back to the game. Let's not pay too much attention to what's gonna happen. Let's focus on on the present. So here the threat is queen e5, because if you do something like knight c3, then queen takes e5, and now queen b7 is impossible because of queen e1 and rook b7 with the rook up. And of course, if you take and rook takes, now bishop f3, black is a piece up in this position. So here they followed those 4 games I mentioned before, and white took on d5. Knight d5 by Magnus. And now the problem for white is his coordination. He's not developed yet. Black's pieces are quite fine, bishops are nicely placed, so white has to find a way to somehow eliminate this counterplay. And I think in those positions Magnus is really good from black side. I think he's going to... I think he has good chances to hold this. Because also you have to have in mind that on this side where white has a majority, there's this double pawn which might be an issue, and also knight b4 ideas might come. Bishop d2 was played in all 4 of these games. I'm wondering if white can play something like c3, but that seems a bit far-fetched. Maybe after knight c3, after c3, now it's gonna be tough to develop here. Yeah, I think it's mostly to hold with black. I think it's a pleasant sacrifice. It's what Magnus likes, I believe. He likes those positions with a bishop pair as a compensation for a pawn. If you followed the World Cup, there was a game between Etienne Bacrot and him, and he just gave the pawn in the opening, and it was really unpleasant for white, even though it was objectively equal. But well, who knows? I don't believe that Nepo really likes those positions, so he might turn badly here, and that's where Magnus is gonna wait him. But I must say that in the candidates, Nepo showed really well positional play. Really good positional play. So what's it gonna be? If white plays knight c3 here, then knight b4 is very unpleasant, hitting this pawn on c2. And I think that after this, takes on c2, rook c2, bishop e5 is quite bad for white, because black got his pawn back and white's pawn structure is horrible. This is just... this is just a no-no. So what's it gonna be? Bishop d2 is the theory here. I think his coach, Potkin, Russian GM also. I think Karyakin is also involved somehow. But I don't think he's a second. I think he's more like a consultant and something like that. I don't believe Dubov is in any way connected with both of players, because he worked with Magnus, and it would be a bit strange. I think I heard in some article, I read in some article that some surprising name was the second. I cannot recall. And bishop d2 was played indeed. Bishop d2, and now the theory says c5 is the move. And by bishop d2, white is preparing knight c3. Because after knight b4, then white has rook c1 to defend the c2 pawn, which he didn't have before bishop d2. So Magnus plays c5. They don't spend too much time. I mean, Nepo spent a bit more, but nothing drastic. Probably he just made sure that that he doesn't mix up the theory. So yeah, c5, and now knight c3 was the move. We'll see if they repeat these 4 games. Leko was a second for Nepo in candidates, and you could see there that if you followed, you could see that his influence was very, very palpable, because he played some very technical chess in candidates, and I think he will have to resort to more technical chess here. I don't believe that he will achieve much by just going to crazy positions like he usually does. But I think mainly he has to, in some positions like this one, he has to rely on his technical skill, which Leko brings to the table with his secondness. But on the other hand, I don't believe that he can outplay Magnus in such positions like this one. I really don't have much trust, because Magnus is just superior in such positions, and the level of understanding of such positions is superb. Look at me, a fanboy of Magnus. Where's the surprise? Where is someone gonna deviate from the main line, from the theory? And also, is c5 intended to play knight b4? Is it? Like immediately, if he doesn't go knight c5? Knight c3, knight b4. This was all played before. Rook ac1 was, and now they deviate a bit. Some played rook d8, some played f6. Yeah, after h3, he just went for this. Most common is d6 or bishop b7 immediately. And just keep this, boring Rui Lopez position. But I never saw this. I never saw this before. Knight e5, knight b3. Also, there is bishop b7. Yeah, h3 can be also interpreted like anti-martial move, because if white plays c3, then d5 is a martial attack, and after this you get a really interesting position played a billion times. I think now d4 or d3 is the main move, bishop d6, rook e1, and now queen h4, I guess, with a super complex position. Oh, never mind. Better late than never. And I think h3 was played to just wait for him to play d6, so he can continue with c3 and push for d4 and play the usual Rui Lopez stuff. Let's just reset the board. Let's see. Nothing was played. c5. Now I expect knight c3 to be played. Because why do you play bishop d2 if you don't play knight c3 immediately? That just feels right. Let's check the eval bar for a second. It says on Lichess engine, on Lichess Stockfish 14, it says plus 0.4. Which means that black has a decent compensation for a pawn. Yeah. Help me survive. Okay, let's turn off the engine because it's messing up my stream, I guess. So what do you expect, guys? What do you expect from this match? Is it gonna be tie breaks, solved before tie breaks? What's your prediction? And in the meanwhile, while you type the answers or no, what can White do here? Why is Nepo thinking so much? Now he's recalling some prep. I can feel that he is stirring something up. Maybe rook e2 first. That seems interesting. But I believe that after f6, knight f3, knight f4, this is even worse to play. Because bishop pair against bishop against knight pair, I wouldn't really suggest. Don't try this at home. If Jan cuts his hair, he'll win. I don't think that there's gonna be a tiebreak. Also, I think they're not. There's disbalance in their styles, and I don't think it will lead to an equal match. I think it's gonna be +2 difference. And it might be even over before, like, one game to spare. But let's first check those first couple of games to see how's the pulse of each player, and we might have some hint how is this match going to go. Oh, from the video. I don't see the video. That's the bad part of this stream. The only bad part. Wait, let me just... I mean, everyone is commentating nowadays. Everyone is commentating. Let me check. Well, Nepo doesn't seem relaxed as well. Doesn't seem... I'm now playing on my phone this Chess24 broadcast, and now I see the faces. Nepo is like, oh my god, what have I prepped before? Oh, is it knight c3 or is it rook e2 first? Oh, something like this. Or he's like, oh, I'm gonna trick him, I'm not prepared well, and I'm gonna blitz out a couple of next moves. And Magnus seems like he's gonna fall asleep very soon. Yeah. A big majority of people just watch at faces and at numbers. Just watch watch the eval bar, and that's how they process the game, which is normal, but I think you nothing. I'm not gonna say anything. So what do you think? What would you play if you were white? In this position, maybe something like knight g4 was on his mind, trying to get to e3. This knight looks really annoying. Luca, hello. Welcome to my commentary. Officially the best commentator in in Serbia. Unofficially, sorry. Unofficially. And also I want to mention that after this game I'm going to analyze the game in more depth, and I'm gonna upload the recap of this game. C4 is interesting. C4 seems interesting indeed, but I don't know how these pawns will react. These pawns on b3 and d3 have something to say, and they say, no, don't play this. Come on. Are you kidding me? But it might be good. It might be. I'm not saying it's a bad move, but because if black takes on c4, he captures back, and there's only d3 weakness. So what does black do here? Knight f6 maybe, and it seems at first weakening, but I don't know. I don't see how you can exploit this weakness immediately. Maybe something like knight e4 next. Hello Marcin, welcome. How are you? Yeah. Knight c3 was played in all 4 games on Chess database. Knight b4 was played, and rook a c1. And I said before, they deviate here, they play either f6 or rook d8. But what's the point of rook d8? To push c4 next, maybe? To use the bishop on d2. For example, to make a point, if I go king g1 here, black pushes c4, and if he takes, I think this is good for black. Now I think he equalizes here easily. And the d3 pawn is weak. I think that's the whole point of this move. So rook d8 here. And now in one game they played knight g4. But it was played again between 2200 players. Oh, look at this. Nepo plays knight f3 here. What is this? Knight f3, can you go? Knight b4 here. The point of rook fb8 was to force the exchange of queens. Because now queen e5 is a threat. And once they exchange queens, knight gets to a better square and black is more active. Because in this case, you cannot capture an e5 immediately because queen b7 is possible. At least that's my interpretation of the point of rook fb8. Because after this, now if you develop normally, then queen e5 is losing for white, because if you take on b7, now he takes on e1 first. And after king e1, take on b7. And that's my version of interpreting this. But he plays knight f3 here, and I'm not sure if knight f4 is... yeah, it was worse, because if you go rook a b8 here, now he takes, and knight takes is impossible because of knight d7, and losing the exchange. And if bishop takes, then a6 is undefended. So now white is just 2 pawns up, and it doesn't... yeah. So first reason is that you want to avoid the pin, the fork on d7, and the second one is you want to defend a6 pawn. But that's kind of connected, you know. You cannot... wait, was it possible to just go queen f3 here? And just take? Probably not, because it makes it easier for white to play now. Knight c3, knight e4. With an extra pawn, it's not really good. So let's see. We have this position on the board, and I was mentioning maybe knight b4 next. And in case he takes, I was wondering if bishop f3 was possible, but maybe you just simply take here and put pressure on c2. And if knight d2, then rook c8. And how does white defend? Rook c1, bishop f4 looks a bit annoying, because now bishop f3 is a big threat. What's it gonna happen? Knight f4 also looks interesting, but I think knight e5 is now very good. Because if you take on g2, you go king g1, and now the knight is under attack, and the bishop is tied to a knight, so you have to capture really on e5, take and go back to g6, somehow to cheat your way out of this tangle. And once he takes, bishop h3, this looks very chaotic. 4 versus 2 on this side, 3 versus 1 on the king side. I don't know. I think that here white is much better because his pawns are much more likely to get pushed, because if you push the pawns on the king side, your king might get in trouble, so it's much easier to push them on this side where there's no king. So yeah, knight f4 seems a bit dubious to me. What else to play? Guys, what do you think? But also, if I go knight e5 here, knight g2 is possible. I forgot about that. I forgot. And now what do you do actually? Rook e2, but he can go back to h4 and escape. Or just go rook e8 and knight can go back to g4 maybe, but it doesn't look very happy. f5, knight e3, knight f4, capture on h3. Looks quite sketchy. Yeah, he's gonna play something really weird. I think they're out of book right now. Well, that's a rough statement, but they're not now choosing which move to play. They know what are the options, but they still are not sure what to play, I think. Knight f3 is a novelty, so now we see how will Magnus navigate this position. Wow, it's 40 minutes already. I must say, it's not as boring as previous broadcasts. Not as boring. But I hope next time I will have some guests, and because it's easier to talk to somebody about the position. What is this going to be? Which move? Knight b4, knight f4. Also, b4 looks quite tempting to me. A move like this to completely shut down the knight, but it's also quite risky because if white manages to get his knight to d2 and c4, this is a nice outpost. Yeah, it's not easy to utilize the bishop pair here. Because white can always get his knight to d4, which might cause some weakening moves like f5, which weaken e6. It's really double-edged. Long term it might prove that it's good for black, but also for white. Because if white in this position, it looks very good for black, but once white gets his pieces out and stabilizes, I don't know, it might be a problem for black. So I think it's best to keep these pawns like this, to not overextend too much on the queen side, because if you push those pawns you make weakening squares and that's not what you want. But also by pushing this pawn you make some concession. You fix the b2 pawn and you fix the c pawn, and it's really tough to weigh these two parameters. In 15 minutes I will do a quick break, about 2 minutes, and I'll be back. So just to give you a heads up, what is this again? Maybe Magnus is considering to play b4 here, but I don't know. Yes, so far it looks very ugly. This knight on b1 and rook on a1 on starting position, but once they get active, black will have to answer some questions. Is a move like bishop f4 good? For example, if you take, rook e3, or just knight bd2, and now there's no bishop pair, there's nothing, I believe, and white is simply a pawn up. Yeah, especially this rook on a8 doesn't seem really happy about it, about being choked by his colleague. So we talked about this. I talked about this, knight e5. And where do you go? Knight g2. Knight g2 is the reason. Yeah. So takes, probably. And knight c3. What should black do here? Yeah, but the issue with the, for example, if you want to play knight c3 here immediately, then knight b4, and the c2 pawn is under attack. So that's the point of bishop d2 here, to stop knight b4. And to have knight c3 next. Let's see the engine, plus 0.4 again. And it says that knight b4 is the best move here. Knight b4. And what's wrong with knight f4? Oh, just develop. And in case of this, taking... Oh, now knight d5 is good. Oh, that's nice. Stopping knight to go back to f4. That looks really awesome. I don't know, this feels that it can go both ways, I believe. I think it's such an easy position to mess up. Strobex, good morning. Yeah, in Serbia it's 2:30, but 2:30 p.m. But good morning. Time zones. How are you? Are you hyped for the match as I am? They do, but you know what? Once white gets knight c3, knight e4, the bishop has to move, and the c5 is very vulnerable. If it goes to e7, it's not as effective as before, even though it might go to f6 later on. So white's idea is just to exchange one pair of bishops, which should be this one. And I think after that, white's job is much easier. And in most cases, it means that black is doing much worse, because let's face it, he's a pawn down, and without any compensation that can validate this pawn sacrifice. So knight f3, what should he do? Knight b4 was, we said. And now it's tough, because if you go knight a3, your knight is really bad there. It's defending c2, but nothing else. You cannot go to c4 ever. You can play c4, but d3 is weak. So I don't know. The only this is looking really awful for white, because even if you go rook c1 next, you cannot push c3 still because of d3. So I think you need to either capture on b4, which looks a bit iffy. Looks iffy because After this, the c2 square might be dangerously attacked after this. And now the knight is stuck on b1 because it defends c3. And if you capture it, okay, you recapture back. And if c4, that might look better, but I'm not so sure, because maybe you can now consider this and go for bishop c5, bishop d4, something like that, and then put pressure on d3 pawn. Maybe you can go for this endgame and go knight d2, but again, I'm not so convinced with this. Bishop d4 and take on b2. This passed pawn is going to be very slow. I'm not sure about this. Magnus played rook d8 here. So let's figure out the point of this move. I would say that the point of this move is to get his rook, his second rook, to c8, and then to play knight b4 next, and also anticipate some attack on the c file. Let's put some random moves just to prove the point. Now the c2 pawn will be under attack, and also the d rook is ready to deliver some attack on the d3 pawn. Sorry for this. So that seems like explanation for this, for his move. Yeah, 20 minutes, but you know, he has hour and a half for 23 moves, which is a lot. It's really a lot. And they get an hour after that for 20 moves, which is, in my opinion, enough. This is 2 hours for 40 moves, 1 hour after 40th move until the 60th move, and then with increment it can last up to 7 hours easily. If it's some deep endgame and they get to move 60 and beyond, we might be here until 9 p.m. Oh god, no, please. Please don't. Finish it quickly. Yeah, it is. Now, is bishop a5 possible here? Is it doing anything? Maybe just rook d7 and try b4 next. And if knight c3, then knight b4, I suppose it's the best. And I wonder if you can play a move like this. No, no, no. That's too much. Knight c2. So rook c1. Oh, there is a game, but from a different move order. Bishop f8 was played here. Oh, this game is weird already. So weird. So after this, the idea is c4. To use this bishop on d2, which is undefended so far. But I'm wondering if there's any way for black to enter an opposite color bishop ending to somehow exchange. No, there's no. To exchange those two knights and to exchange this bishop for a knight on c3, but no. What else can we do here? Bishop a5, rook d7, knight e5 maybe. So this, rook d7, knight e5, but I believe that after rook e7, imagine repeating moves here. That would be so disappointing. If he goes to g4, then you take, bishop takes, and knight f4. Knight e3, bishop e5. Or something else, maybe. Maybe just knight b4. Why not? And if he defends, bishop e5 now. Oh, but still bishop c3 looks a bit annoying. Do you have ideas about who might be your guest here on the future stream? Vlad? And Maripant, maybe? And also Stepan. I might have him here as a guest. And here maybe bishop d4 would be awesome. Bishop d4, and now I want to capture an e3. If you take, I kick this knight away and take on c2. So my bet is that they're gonna play this. Bishop a5, rook d7, knight e5, rook e7, go back, go back, go back. What do you think? Is it possible to have a repetition in the first game after 20 moves? My core fans, yeah. Hardcore fans. I think this is gonna happen. I don't know, I feel like this is a real scenario. Because it's not easy to continue as white here. Knight b4 is coming next. If you get knight d2, you kinda invite him to trap your bishop. I don't know. And this seems like the good way to liquidate everything. Yeah, it looks very dry, but that's how Ruy Lopez is. I think it would be more interesting to have bishop c4, to have Italian. There is more space to be sharp. Because, first of all, black can play this and we can enter fried liver, I think it's called. This is much sharper and much more interesting. No, but at least to see Sicilian, not e5. I think it's not problem with e4 in general, it's problem when black plays e5, then it becomes... And again, if white responds to knight c6 with bishop b5, it becomes really mind-blowingly boring. Alekhine. Well, that's an interesting option for the World Championship match. I'm wondering if he will play Caro-Kann in some games. I really wonder if he's gonna challenge Nepo in the Caro-Kann, maybe. Do you think that c4 is going to be played first move? What do you think? To have some kind of reverse Sicilian with c4, e5. I think Magnus will play this. Some lines like c4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, e4, and maybe g3, I think. There was some... I'm not sure if I'm doing it properly. Bishop b4, oh, bishop b4, e4, and after this to get g3 and have some kind of reverse Rossolimo. Looks okay. Oh, we had some moves. Knight c3. Oh, it's a pity. Knight c3, knight b4. And now rook c1 looks like the obvious choice. And again we have theory here. Bishop f8 was the only move that was played in some game. But I think if Magnus wants to avoid complications, I think he has to play d4. It's more calm, because if he plays e4, then Nepo can play Sicilian and everything is possible in Sicilian. Okay, Rossolimo, if you play Rossolimo, then it's different, but If you allow him to play Sveshnikov, it's everything is possible. So I believe even if he tries e4, he will go for Rossolimo like in the previous match against Caruana. Just play this and play some calm stuff. I don't believe that it's possible to get this sharp after bishop b5 in comparison to Sveshnikov or Kalashnikov, why not? But Sveshnikov like this, and now both knight d5 and bishop g5 lead to some very sharp positions, so I don't think Magnus will choose this. I think he's most likely going for this, for Rossolimo, or if he goes for d6 to go for bishop b5 setups. So here Nepo plays rook ec1. Interesting. Why was it better to go with the other rook? Maybe he wants to defend this b2 pawn by his other rook, I don't know. Let's check out the engine. How does the engine evaluate this? Plus 0.5, plus 0.6. And before this, knight b4? Oh, it says it's around equal. So it doesn't make... Yeah, keeping pressure on a6, but... it's not really a big difference, so... personally, I would play rook ac1 here, just... because I don't see how I can pressure on a6, because it's defended 3 times. And... I want to keep an e-file under control to play knight e4 next. Eventually, and... I don't know. It's a bit puzzling, but... he has his reasons. Rook ec1. Let me try to figure out this. Maybe he was afraid of... for example, if you go rook ac1, bishop f8, and he goes knight e4. Now black can be annoying with knight a2 and attacking this pawn over and over again. That's one of the reasons, maybe. No, there's no pressure so far. I think 1 hour is quite enough for 20 moves. That might be the one reason. Now, should you play f5 as black to stop knight e4? It seems good, but also you might want to think about weakening e6. In case of f5, bishop g5, rook d7. Again, it's not easy to use this weakness on e6 because you can play h6 and g5. Rook ac8. Okay, that's played. So this might be the idea of black. He wants to go bishop f8 probably and go c4 next to break those pawns and to use the bishop on d2, which is defended only by knight. But as I said before, if you go some random moves like bishop f8, you don't do anything. Now after c4, you cannot capture on c4 because of bishop f3 and losing the bishop. And if you take twice, again d3 is under pressure and black is winning this pawn back. Or maybe he wants to... Oh, he goes 92 here. 92. So... what is this all about? Probably it's all about bishop f4, trying to neutralize this bishop on d6. Looks like one idea. '94, yeah, 94 is also interesting here, but I think that after bishop f8, now the c4 is a strong threat. Because the knight is defended by a pawn, and after c4 it's not going to be so stable anymore. '92. Go to f4 and exchange some pieces, but I think that after bishop f8... Or maybe he wants to capture on b4, but that seems a bit too much. For example, if you go back to e7, take, c3, I don't know, bishop f6 looks quite scary, because after d4 you have bishop... Oh, you don't have bishop, because the pawn on a6 hangs. Can I take a couple of times and push b4? I don't think so. This... I don't have the Luft for my king. How do you feel about this position? Let's check the evil bar. Let's check it. Bishop f8 was suggested and bishop e7 or h6. Probably to stop bishop g5. Yeah. Yeah, if you want to go to f6, you want to stop bishop g5. But probably not, because if you go bishop g5, you take on f3 and you lose the piece. Guys, do you want to switch to Twitch? What do you think? Switch to Twitch. No, it's not. It's not, but I think I will have more viewers on Twitch. I feel like that. I don't know. So if you don't follow me already, you can. I think it's better to switch to Twitch. Knight c6 by Magnus. Interesting. What is this going to be? Maybe bishop f4 now. And what then? Take? No. Oh no. Oh no. No, no, it doesn't suck. Blink twice if you... if you're kidnapped. Knight c6. What was the point of knight c6? Damn it. Okay, I'm gonna end now, but I'm gonna also commentate on Twitch. So if you haven't, follow me on this channel, and I'll see you there. Bye.